Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
Chapter 6. The Monster Story. Synopsis.
Victor continues to feel despair. He again tries to escape it through nature. He climbs to the peak of a mountain called Montenvers. But just as the view begins to lift his spirits, Victor sees the monster he had created.
"Devil!"
Victor shouted.
"How dare you come here? Go away, or stay so that I can kill you with my bare hands."
"I expected you to say that,"
said the monster.
"You created me, and now you want to kill me. Life means nothing to you, Frankenstein."
"Devil! Murderer!"
Victor shouted.
"Calm down,"
He said.
"I don't want to fight with you. Please listen to me. I am miserable, Frankenstein. Everyone thinks that I'm a monster. I used to be good and kind, but I've been treated so badly that I've become cruel. You are my creator, and I've come to ask you to do your duty. If you do what I ask, I promise I will leave you alone."
"Get away from me, or I'll kill you!"
Victor screamed.
How can I make you listen to me? How can I make you understand that only you have the power to make me good again? If you don't help me, other people will suffer just as I have suffered. Listen to my story, Frankenstein. Then you can kill me if you wish. It's too cold to talk here. There's a hut nearby. Follow me there and hear my tale,"
said the monster. Victor decided to follow the monster to the hut. He had some questions to ask him, and he wanted to make sure that the monster had in fact killed his brother William. Victor and the monster entered the hut. Victor sat down next to the fire. Then the monster began his story.
"When I left your apartment, I walked for several hours until I ended up in the forest near Ingolstadt. I was like a newborn baby. Light, sounds, and smells confused me, and I remember feeling hunger for the very first time. I didn't have any food, so I ate some berries and drank water from the river. It was very cold, and luckily I found a cloak that I used to cover myself. The days passed, and I started to get used to my new surroundings. I remember feeling great joy when I first heard the birds sing. I tried to imitate them, but the terrible sounds that came out of my mouth frightened me, so I stopped. On one particularly cold day, I discovered a fire that had been left behind by some beggars. I examined the fire and realized that the beggars had used wood to start it. So I made a fire too, to keep warm and to cook scraps of food that travelers had left behind. But food became more and more scarce, and I was forced to wander through the forest in search of something to eat. Eventually, I came upon a small hut at the edge of the forest. I went inside and saw an old man preparing his breakfast over a fire. He turned around, saw me, and screamed. Then he ran out of the hut and across the fields. I was hungry, and I decided to eat the old man's breakfast, which consisted of bread, cheese, and milk. Once I'd finished eating, I lay down on some straw and fell asleep. It was noon when I woke up. The sun was shining brightly, and I decided to continue my journey. I arrived at a small village at sunset. I saw milk and cheese in the windows of the cottages, and the gardens were full of ripe vegetables. I was feeling hungry again, so I walked into one of the cottages. Needless to say, I wasn't welcome. The children inside the cottage screamed when they saw me, and a woman fainted. The villagers were very angry. They threw sticks and stones at me, and I ran as fast as I could to get away from them. I found a small wooden hut near a cottage in a field far from the village. I decided that the hut would be my new hiding place. I made myself a bed of straw and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I saw a young girl carrying a bucket of milk. She was very pretty, but she looked very sad. She walked towards the cottage, and a young man came out to meet her. He took the bucket inside for her. Then he walked out of the cottage with some tools and crossed the nearby field. I noticed that one of the cottage windows was broken and had been covered with a wooden plank. There was a small hole in the plank, and I looked through it. I saw the young girl tidy up the cottage. She then sat down next to an old man who was playing a guitar and singing sweetly. The old man played a sad song that made the young girl cry. He said something and smiled at her. He seemed very gentle and kind, and as I watched the scene, I experienced strange new emotions that I'd never felt before. The young man eventually returned, and the old man continued to play the instrument. Later, the young man opened a book and made sounds I'd never heard before. He was reading aloud, but I knew nothing about words and letters at that point. When the sun set, the family went to sleep, and I returned to my hut.
Questions and answers. You created me, and now you want to kill me. Life means nothing to you. Comment.
The monster said these words to Victor Frankenstein when the monster went to Victor on the top of the mountain. Victor wanted to kill him, so the creature told Victor that life meant nothing to him.
Why did Victor follow the monster to the hut?
Victor followed the monster to the hut because Victor had some questions to ask the monster and wanted to make sure that the monster had killed his brother.
Who lived in the cottage near the small village?
A family of three, an old man, a young man, and a young girl lived in the cottage near the small village.
Thanks for watching.